If I hadn't grabbed the keys that night, my brother wouldn't be alive. It was supposed to be his wedding night, the happiest night of his life. But instead of celebrating, we were racing to the hospital, praying we weren't too late. And the worst part? It all started with a sound we should have never ignored. Life was supposed to be perfect. My older brother's wedding was only days away and our house felt alive. Not loud in a chaotic way, but warm, busy, full of energy. Wedding outfits were laid out across beds. Jewelry was locked away safely. Cash for vendors and decorations was tucked inside drawers. Relatives were calling non-stop. Every conversation ended with laughter. It felt like one of those rare seasons in life when everything is finally going right. And that's exactly why none of us saw it coming. That night we went to sleep exhausted. Wedding planning had drained us. By midnight, the house slowly powered down. Lights clicked off. Doors closed. Conversations faded. By 2 a.m., the entire house was asleep. The kind of deep silence where even your breathing sounds loud. And then, I heard something. Not a crash. Not a scream. Just a sound that didn't belong. A soft creak. At first I ignored it. My mind searched for an explanation. Maybe the wind. Maybe wood settling. You know how your brain tries to keep you calm when something feels off? But then I heard it again. Closer this time. I opened my eyes, and before I could even sit up, my bedroom door slowly opened. No rush, no force, just opened. My heart stopped. Standing in the doorway were 3 men. I couldn't see their faces clearly in the dark, but I saw what mattered. They were holding guns. For a second, my brain refused to accept it. It felt unreal, like a scene from a movie, like I would blink and wake up. But I didn't wake up. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a low, controlled voice. Get up. Quietly. Not yelling, not panicking. That calm tone made it worse. Within minutes, every door in our house had opened the same way. One by one. Slow. Intentional. They moved us into one room. My parents, my brothers, me, all standing together. Nobody screamed. Nobody argued. Fear has a strange effect. It freezes you before it moves you. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they could hear it echoing off the walls. One of the men asked where the valuables were. Jewelry, cash, phones. And because of the wedding, everything they wanted was already inside that house. Wrong place. Wrong night. They took our phones first. Just like that, our connection to the outside world disappeared. No calling for help. No texting a neighbor. No emergency contact. We were cut off. Completely. If you've ever felt trapped before, you know that feeling in your chest, like the air gets heavier. That's what it felt like. The men weren't chaotic. They weren't screaming or breaking things. They were organized, calm, focused, which made them even more dangerous. Then something happened that changed the energy in the room. My older brother wasn't there yet. He had been in the bathroom when everything started. We didn't even realize he was missing until the door behind the men opened. He stepped out casually at first, confused, and then he saw them. 3 strangers, guns. His entire family backed against a wall, and in that split second, something shifted. He didn't freeze. He didn't stay quiet. He stepped forward. "Who are you?" he said firmly. "Get out of my house. How dare you come here?" The room tightened. One of the men snapped his head toward him instantly. "Be quiet," he warned. But my brother didn't back down. And here's the thing. Sometimes courage doesn't look loud. It looks steady. He wasn't screaming wildly. He was standing firm, protective. The kind of protective that makes you realize how strong someone really is. If you were in that room, what would you have done? Stayed silent? Or stepped up? The tension thickened. One of the men moved closer to him. Another adjusted his grip. You could feel it. This was about to escalate. Everything felt slow, heavy. Then, a shot rang out. The sound exploded through the house. It was so sudden, so loud that my ears rang instantly. My brother staggered backward. We shouted without even thinking. Before anyone could process what happened, another shot echoed. Chaos took over. No graphic details, just confusion, shock, fear flooding the room. Time stopped making sense. My parents were shaking. I couldn't tell who was hurt or how badly. When adrenaline hits, your brain struggles to keep up. But through the panic, my older brother did something I'll never forget. He tried to calm us. "I'm okay," he said through clenched teeth. "Don't panic." Even in that moment, he was protecting us. And that's when something unexpected happened. The three men didn't look confident anymore. They looked shaken. They weren't shouting now. They weren't in control. They were looking at each other. One of them glanced toward the window. Another stepped back slightly. Maybe the shots were louder than they expected. Maybe they were afraid neighbors heard. Maybe they realized things had just crossed a line. But their energy changed. You could feel it. The calm, calculated presence they walked in with? Gone. One of them dropped the phones. Then another. They weren't even focused on grabbing everything anymore. They looked rattled. And without another word, they turned and ran. Yes, they ran. Out the door, down the street, into the darkness. Just like that. The house went silent again. But this silence felt different. Heavier. We stood there frozen for a second. For a few seconds after they ran, nobody moved. It was like the house forgot how to breathe. Then everything hit at once. My brothers, my parents, the reality of what just happened. My father looked like he was trying to stay strong, but I could see it in his face. He was shaken. Completely shaken. His hands were trembling. His voice wasn't steady anymore. That's when I realized something. If we didn't move fast, we could lose time we didn't have. "I'll drive," I said. I don't even remember thinking about it. My body just reacted. I grabbed the keys. We helped my brothers outside. Every second felt heavy. The street that had looked normal just hours ago now felt unfamiliar, almost unreal. The night air was cold, too quiet. I kept looking around, half expecting those men to come back. My heart was still pounding in my ears. We got my brothers into the back seat. My father sat beside them, trying to keep them alert, trying to stay calm, but I could hear it in his breathing. He was scared, and I had never seen my father scared before. I started the engine. The drive to the hospital was only 15 minutes. It felt like an hour. Every red light felt illegal. Every stop sign felt personal. I wanted to press the gas and just fly, but I had to stay steady. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly they started to hurt. In the back seat, my older brother was still talking. "I'm good," he kept saying. "Don't panic." Even then, he was trying to protect us. My father kept checking on both of them. His voice cracked when he spoke. I could hear him whispering prayers under his breath. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. I wasn't just scared anymore. I was responsible. If you've ever had to be strong for your family when you didn't feel strong, you know that pressure. Meanwhile, back at the house, my mother had locked every door and window. But she wasn't just sitting there. She acted. She called our close relative, someone who lived just a few houses away. Her voice was shaking as she explained what happened. Within minutes, he was on his way over. No one should be alone after something like that. When she looked outside again, the street was almost empty, but not completely. The three men were still down the road, and this time, they didn't look calm. They were arguing. Their movements were sharp, nervous. One kept looking up and down the street. Another paced back and forth like he couldn't decide what to do. They weren't in control anymore. They looked rattled, like the situation had slipped out of their hands. Then suddenly, they rushed off, disappearing into the darkness. gone. But the fear they left behind, that stayed. Back in the car, the hospital lights finally came into view. I've never been so relieved to see a building in my life. I pulled up to the emergency entrance. Everything after that moved fast. Nurses rushed out with a stretcher. Doctors started asking questions. Doors swung open. Bright white lights replaced the darkness of the street. And just like that, my brothers were taken inside. My father and I stood there for a second. Alone. The adrenaline that had been pushing us forward suddenly slowed down, and that's when the emotions hit. Hard. My father sat down, not because he wanted to, because he had to. The strength he was holding on to cracked. I could see it in his eyes. He kept replaying everything in his mind. I could tell. What if we had reacted differently? What if help had come sooner? What if... Those questions are dangerous. They don't help. They just sit in your chest and make it heavier. We went inside and waited. Hospitals at night feel different. The lights are bright, but everything feels quiet, controlled, serious. Every time the emergency room doors opened, my heart jumped. Minutes felt like hours. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. She told me our relative had arrived and was staying with her. She tried to sound calm, but I could hear the fear underneath. "Are they okay?" she asked. I didn't have an answer. Not yet. And that silence was terrifying. Finally, a doctor walked toward us. He removed his gloves slowly. That walk felt like slow motion. You know that feeling when someone approaches you with news and your brain starts preparing for the worst? That's what it felt like. My father stood up immediately. The doctor looked at both of us and said, "They're stable." For a split second, I felt air return to my lungs, but he didn't stop there. "There are complications we need to monitor." My father's face changed. Complications. That word echoed louder than anything else that night. The doctor explained that one bullet was still lodged in my older brother's shoulder. The other had passed through and injured my second brother as well. They were alive, but they weren't out of danger yet. And as we stood there in that bright hospital hallway, I realized something. The nightmare wasn't over. The hospital hallway felt colder than it should have. Not the kind of cold that hits your skin, the kind that settles in your chest. They had just taken my brothers inside. The doors swung shut, and just like that, we were left staring at a blank white wall like it had answers. My father sat down slowly. I'd never seen him like that before. Not angry, not strong, not loud, just quiet. His hands were trembling slightly. He kept staring at the floor like he was replaying everything in his head. My mother stood beside him, whispering prayers under her breath. Over and over, like if she stopped for even a second, something bad would happen. And me? I was trying to act strong, trying to be the man of the moment, but inside, my mind was racing. What if we were too late? What if driving wasn't fast enough? What if I made one wrong turn? Every time the emergency room doors opened, my heart jumped into my throat. Nurses rushed by. Doctors walked quickly, talking in serious tones. None of them looked at us. Time stopped making sense. 5 minutes felt like an hour. An hour felt like a lifetime. My father suddenly covered his face with his hands. "I should have protected them," he whispered. That sentence hit me harder than anything that happened that night, because I knew something he already had. He stood in front of danger. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He faced it, and now he was blaming himself. I sat next to him and put my hand on his shoulder. "Dad, we're here. They're fighting, just like you did." For the first time in my life, I saw tears in his eyes, not loud crying, just silent tears of a man who almost lost everything. Then, the doors opened again. This time, a doctor walked out slowly. He removed his mask. His face was serious. My chest tightened. He looked at us. "Family of the 2 young men?" We all stood up at the same time. "Yes," I said. There was a pause. That pause felt like the world holding its breath. Then he said the words we were desperately waiting for. "They're going to be okay." I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I let it out. The doctor explained calmly. The shoulder injury had been treated. The stomach wound was serious, but no major organs were damaged. They needed recovery time, but they were stable. Stable. That word saved us. My mother broke down in relief. My father closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you." I don't even know if he meant the doctor or God. And me? My knees almost gave out. Because in that moment I realized something terrifying. We were inches away from a completely different ending. They let us see them later. My brothers were lying there, pale but conscious, machines humming softly beside them. One of them managed a weak smile when he saw us, and that smile meant everything. I walked closer and grabbed his hand carefully. "You scared us, man," I said, trying to sound tough. He smiled faintly. "You drove like a maniac." For the first time since that night started, we laughed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't long, but it was real. My father stepped forward. He placed his hand gently on my brother's head. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. My brother shook his head slightly. "You stood in front of them." No more words were needed. That night changed something in all of us. When we finally returned home days later, the house didn't feel the same. The walls were the same. The furniture was the same. But the energy was different. We double-checked the locks. Every small noise at night made us sit up. Silence felt heavier. We weren't the same people who walked into that house before everything happened. But here's the thing about storms. They either break you, or they show you how strong you really are. The wedding was delayed slightly. For a moment, we even questioned if it should happen at all. But my brother insisted. "Life doesn't stop," he said. And he was right. When the wedding day finally came, everything looked beautiful. The lights were glowing. The decorations were perfect. Music filled the air. But this time, every hug lasted longer. Every smile had tears behind it. When my brother walked in, his bandage still visible under his suit, the entire room went silent for a second. Not because of weakness, but because of respect. He wasn't just a groom anymore. He was a survivor. People didn't just celebrate the marriage that day. They celebrated life. They celebrated courage. They celebrated the fact that we were all still standing. During the ceremony, I looked around at my family. My father stood taller than before. Not because he felt powerful, but because he understood something deeper now. We don't control everything, but we control how we respond. And that night, we responded with courage. As the music played and everyone danced, I stepped outside for a moment. The same sky, the same stars, but I wasn't the same person. I realized something that I'll never forget. Life can flip upside down in seconds. One normal evening can turn into chaos, but fear doesn't define you. Your actions do. That night I grabbed the keys. That night my father stood his ground. That night my brothers fought to stay alive. Courage isn't loud. It's not about being fearless. It's about moving forward even when your heart is pounding. It's about protecting the people you love. And if I learned anything from all of this, it's that family is everything. Money can disappear. Plans can change. Weddings can be delayed. But when you have people who stand beside you, no matter what, you already won. So let me ask you something. What would you have done in that moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you think my brother showed real courage that night, comment, respect. Make sure you subscribe, because these aren't just stories. These are moments that hit different, and trust me, sometimes the scariest nights create the strongest people.